We just encourage small steps. Small things can lead to so many big things. There are just so many little steps that have equated to so many large things for us.
Here's the key to my front door. You got a pillow if you lost yours. You got a seat at my table. You got a here's somebody who believes you. Let truth remind you. You've always got a place to go to. You got a home.
Welcome to The Creator's Journey. I'm your host, Charles Gupton. In each show, I'll talk with creative leaders who face the same fears and obstacles we all face. What makes these folks effective are the processes they've developed that allow them to push through the darkness to consistently ship their work and make a difference. If you've ever felt that your fears and insecurities are getting the best of you, just know that you're not alone. Every creator who works from the heart faces the same challenges. I would love for you to join the community in the Facebook group, The Creator's Journey, for ideas and inspiration that will bring light and direction to your journey. I want to thank Yodalus for sponsoring this episode of The Creator's Journey. Yodalus is an interactive marketing platform for people in the creative world. I'll be talking with Seth Hancock, one of Yodalus' clients, later in the show about his work. If you want to find out how Yodalus helps creative people find one another for work, just go to yodalus.com.
Here's the key to my front door. You got a pillow if you lost yours. You got a seat at my table. You got a home. Here's somebody who believes you. Let truth remind you. You've always got a place to go to. You got a home.
The World Domination Summit, held each summer in Portland, Oregon, is a wonderful place to meet some pretty amazing people. That's where I met Doreen Wharton and Troy Young, my guests today. They were leading a meetup gathering of people interested in living and working as full-time travelers. Down to earth and practical, Doreen and Troy were helping folks navigate the process of shifting from employee to self-employed while traveling. Less than a year earlier, they'd resigned from their jobs, sold virtually all of their possessions, including their home in Toronto, and headed for Thailand, the first stop on their new adventure. Prior to that, Doreen had worked in advertising and marketing, and Troy in television broadcasting. They're talking with me today from their short-term base in Medellin, Colombia, as they travel the world to focus their attention on creating high-impact videos and marketing consulting for the travel industry. I've looked forward to this conversation for a long time. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Charles. Good to be here.
Hey, Charles. Thanks for having us.
A pleasure. At this point, you've been doing this work for about 15 months, and although I want to jump right into what you're doing and you've been learning along the way, first of all, take me back to your mindset about travel throughout the 10 years leading up to this leap. Can you talk about the inciting incident that made you pull the trigger, so to speak?
Sure. I'll start. It was actually quite different for both of us. So we're a married couple. We've been married for 11 years, and we always made an attempt to find a way to travel as much as we could once a year. So we'd bank our holidays, usually at the end of the year around Christmas time, and try to travel for 1 month of the year to absorb, to learn, to challenge ourselves on a holiday to what we define very much is meaningful travel. So that's kind of the impetus of our travel life. But of course, typical North American fashion, we don't have a lot of holidays. So we really try to maximize our time to get away, to not to escape, but to actually learn a lot about ourselves and also the world.
Great. Troy?
We used to go away during the Christmas holidays just because to maximize those holidays, we kind of talked our family into accepting the fact that we weren't going to be around for Christmas. And so that always gave us the extra 3 or 4 weeks. And the biggest thing for us is that when we traveled, we always came across other travelers that were traveling long term. And part of us, we were always jealous of that. And it was something we've always dreamt of doing. And I think realistically, we always figured, oh, well, maybe at some point we can take a year off to travel. You know, that would be the realistic dream for us to do that. And that was all we ever thought about as far as traveling. It was never permanent. It was never sell everything to the point where we're at right now. It was just the 1-year plan.
And I think the thing for us too with travel is we knew travel always changed us, and we'd come back super inspired by the things that we've seen, the way that we challenged ourselves as well, and we just knew, one day could we make it a bigger part of our life. But it didn't go as far. It didn't go any farther than that, than a dream.
Was there a particular incident, a health issue, or somebody around you that went through some kind of experience that set things off?
Yeah, I guess, what's interesting about it is Troy and I are quite different, and we went through a bit of a different path of our inciting incident. For me, I was so focused on my career that it was difficult for me to see anything beyond getting to the next level, getting to the next career advancement. I completely identified by my career. And I really started to get really disillusioned with my career. You talk about, Charles, about shipping great work. And when you work in a corporate environment, you don't always have the opportunity to see that work come to fruition.
Right.
So you don't get a chance sometimes to see your work to grow and evolve, where often, 2 months into a great project that you completed, I had a new boss, I had new selling targets, I had to lay off a number of my staff, and it was very short-term, profit-only thinking. And I felt I lost my creativity, I got bitter about it, and in the end, I lost perspective, and I ultimately did lose my job because I stopped supporting the company line. It was something I did not fundamentally agree with the way the corporations I was with in particular, how they manage their business. It's when I lost my job and I started looking for a new one, everything that I looked at, I was just uninspired by what was out there. I felt like I'd be in the same challenges. Even if I was trying to be in a new industry, which I was, I couldn't see anything beyond what I was already doing. And that's when I started working again, and I just thought, wow, is this it? Is this all I'm good for?
Right.
I started doing some consulting work on the side, which I really enjoyed, and I started to believe that I could be my own boss. But it was at that time, and at the time, my cousin was also dealing with his, the third time having cancer. Troy was actually on a totally different path. He was going in a totally different journey.
Yeah, this was back probably, I think, maybe August of 2013. And I had just signed up for Scott Dinsmore's How to Connect with Anyone course. And then I became pretty active in the Live Your Legend community. And that was sort of my first sort of taste, or the big eye-opener of the power of community and how important it is to surround yourself by the right people, especially if you're about to take a big leap like we were about to do. And if you have big plans, big dreams, to have the right people around you to support you, that'll help you at all costs. And that was sort of as I got into that community, it was just like things started happening. I was just like, wow, I was having different conversations. Not the angry, I hate my job, how was the game this weekend, the usual stuff that, you tend to have with your friends. These were different conversations, and things just started to change. And as those couple months progressed, I think it was maybe November, Jonathan Fields came out with his Rev U course. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I am. I've taken it.
It's yeah. Oh, you've taken it. It's a great
Wonderful
course, and it's the core ideas of a political revolution and applying it to a business. And I was trying to convince Doreen to take it, and she was kind of hesitant about it at first. And then I sort of pitched it to her this way. I said, what if we take our dream of travel, and what if we treat that like a business and like a brand, and use the core ideas of this course, and then look at it that way? Because we weren't even talking about doing it yet. I was just kind of trying to talk her into taking it.
That's funny.
and so we signed up for the course. Yeah, Christmas vacation comes up, December, where we go to Ecuador that year. And the first module of the course comes out in January, the first week of January. And I think it was the one about creating your avatar, who you're going to speak to, who's your audience going to be. And we're in our hotel room in Cuenca, Ecuador, listening to this module, and then we start talking about it. And then all of a sudden the light goes on. And, I think for the first moment, or that very moment, we realized, wow, we're on the same page now. Because I think I could have probably left a couple years earlier, maybe, but we kind of had to wait for the timing to work out. But yeah, we were like, oh, the idea started flowing, and the light went on, and we were just like, wow, I think we can actually do this. And I think at that within the day or two, we bought the domain, we came up with the idea, and just spent the next 5 or 6 days just talking about it. Like, how can we make this work? What's it going to take?
Yeah, and it was about the belief that we could do something. We could actually align together, work on something together, and we were just incredibly excited about it. And I can't remember the last time I was excited about anything. So that was really the journey that we took.
That's so funny. Tell me what your year of preparation was like. Describe for me the joys and struggles of that process.
I think there were more struggles than joys.
What resistance did you face, both externally and internally?
I think it was more struggle than there was joy that whole year. I mean, it was tough. Once we made the decision that we were going to do this, that we were all in, we were going to sell. I mean, there was not a whole lot of. In my mind, there was not a whole lot of doubt. We were pretty confident that this is what we want to do. I think a lot of it was struggles that we had were internal.
So it was actually really interesting because we were both working, and neither of us told our jobs yet that we were leaving. So I built this illustrious, huge spreadsheet of all the things we needed to do, which was just this enormous list of things. And we just started tackling it. So we started slowly selling things. We told our families, and our families were incredibly supportive.
That's wonderful.
They didn't say they were scared or nervous, which we found out later they were, but they were incredibly supportive, which we were so fortunate. And we stayed working with our community. So the Live Your Legend community, and actually a number of people from RevU. One person in particular, we met her for coffee, and she said, well, why are you keeping your house? And what's your connection with it? And it really dawned on us that it's like, really, we've been living in Toronto for 15 and 20 years consecutively between the two of us. And it's like, right, we don't have family here. We have many friends here, but why do we feel attached to keeping this house? And it was probably at that stage that we decided to sell.
Yeah, and at that moment, this was, I think, March. And so in the big city, you had to sort of time it when you're going to sell something. There's peak times to sell the house, and it was the fall. So at that moment, we had 6 months to basically have the house completely empty and ready to sell. So when we finally decided, okay, we're all in, we had 6 months.
And it was busy. It was a busy of selling things, yard sales, selling things online, making preparations, for insurance and, who's going to take our mail and how, all those things that go into it. And then we told our work.
That's funny.
I think, yeah. And I think generally our work, we gave them long lead times as to when we were leaving. But I think we keep on wondering how little resistance we faced. And I think it's partly because we're in our 40s. And many of our friends and the colleagues that we met with probably had more questions as to how we were doing it. But largely, it was received very well. And I think when you're in your 40s and you've done your time in a career, and I think many of us question what's next, what's the next for us. And we see friends and family that may not be well and may not be able to live out their dreams. I think it becomes a question in a number of minds. And so maybe it's our age that was the reason why the resistance just wasn't there.
So were there any relationships in your life that were really meaningful to you that did fade away because you went a different direction? Or is everyone pretty well stuck with you in terms of support and encouragement?
Not really. There's some of our friends that obviously we don't speak to as much. And there may be a few friends that kind of, obviously you don't have that contact anymore. We still keep in touch with our very close friends fairly frequently on like FaceTime or Skype. So we still keep in touch. Social media is always good for that too, especially Facebook.
That's the beauty of social media, is just the opportunity to feel like you're still connected with your friends and your family without being there. we're just so fortunate this day and age that the ability to connect and stay connected is really relatively easy.
Yeah, there is some great value in social media for all the downsides that it can have in terms of attention and productivity. It's good to have some good up points.
That's true.
Is there anything you would have done differently to make your lives less stressful?
Another year of planning probably would have been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, when we had our conversation, when the conversation started and we got excited about it, we put a date in place. And yeah, perhaps if we extended that date, we just would have a bigger opportunity to plan. I think we did everything that we could during that timeline, but just any more time to do anything, of course, is a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, when we got on that plane to Thailand to leave, I mean, we felt broken.
Bet.
We were exhausted. It was a long, especially the last. I mean, the last home stretch was tough. So,
were there any physical items that you thought you would need, but as you started to travel, that you just shed along the way?
That's funny you asked that. I think it was the second or third week of the whole trip. We went to UPS and shipped a huge box back to Canada. We had way too much stuff with us. We started heavy. It was funny because we were almost embarrassed to tell anyone. We thought, okay, we've traveled for years. We know we can travel pretty light, and then we realized when we got there how much stuff we still had. But yeah, we shipped a box back, and even when we went home for Christmas, we had a few boxes left behind. We went through those boxes again, and it was half that stuff was gone. We just gave it away.
And it's interesting when we went through the whole process of selling our stuff. When you take away the emotional attachment of those things, and you have a goal, which is for us, it was traveling long term and simplifying. It was easy to get rid of things, but then in the end, when we were packing, it's like, oh, I might need this, I might need this, I might need this. But in the end, we didn't. And then you just start to discover, I don't need this many pieces of clothes. And if, it is very, if this thing isn't, if this thing rips or it's, doesn't work for me anymore, I can just buy another one. It's not a problem. And the other thing for us was gear. Because of the video and the photography work and those things, we just started slowly depacking some of this stuff and finding things that are a little lighter. We discovered maybe we didn't need this size of this piece of equipment because we're just not using it. So all these things that we went through as we spent our first few months traveling.
Doreen, I remember a blog post that you wrote, if I remember correctly, about meeting some girlfriends for dinner and some of the awkwardness around what clothes you were going to wear in the evening, and more importantly, the shift in values that had occurred in a relatively short time frame leading up to that dinner. Tell me about that turn and what it altered.
We always talk about it as our re-entry, and we ask people when they come back to their home after traveling, most likely in developing countries, and you come home and what are the things that you appreciate or don't appreciate anymore? I was completely that woman that had the 4 closets full of clothes. I mean, we're talking, I was a clothes horse with the same amount of shoes and jewelry to go with it. And, when we left, I invited a friend over to basically take the majority of it. The rest I gave away. And then it was interesting because as I re-entered back into the Western world, as I call it, and we were in Australia, immediately I was out with these girlfriends, and it was this very elaborate dinner out and going to clubs. And I had like shorts and, 3/4 length pants and flip-flops. That's what I had to wear. That's all I had. And I've never felt so uncomfortable, probably because I was going back into a lifestyle that really was never really me, but I played that part for so many years. So I decided, you know what, I need to probably put a pair of pants on. So I tried to find the, cheapest pair of pants I could find and go out for the evening. But then we proceeded to have this dinner that was, $40 to $45 a plate for an entree. And I was mortified, that, I don't need to pay for that. Like I've had a wonderful experience having fantastic meals in a number of countries for a few dollars, and now I'm having this elaborate meal for a massive price, and it actually in the end wasn't even that good. So it was more about being uncomfortable about the and being aware, just being really aware with what else is out there in the world, and that this is a kind of lifestyle that I now don't lead, and it's not for me. And I don't condone that it shouldn't be for others, but it's just not part of my lifestyle anymore. And it was just uncomfortable. And the conversation was uncomfortable because, I was trying to, carry on a conversation on a number of aspects that I just don't matter to me anymore. So it was very interesting. And it was a very interesting night of self-awareness.
Yeah, I get that. That's funny. Well, along those lines, are there any personal prejudices or preconceptions that you've had to face or deal with along the way that have changed you?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think probably the best example of this is there is a tendency of people doing what we're doing. They tend to be younger. And when we came to Colombia and we started asking travel companies for an opportunity to work with them and do some video work for them. And I guess in our own minds, everyone that, a number of people that we see out there that are doing this kind of work are significantly younger than we are. And we reached out to a couple tour operators and asked them, could we do some video work? And one in particular reached out to us and said, yeah, I'd love to meet you guys. And when he met us, and he'd obviously seen our website before, when he met us, he said, okay, you guys are serious. Like, you guys are older, mature, you have careers. And Troy and I at the end just kind of high-fived. It's like, this is when age and experience matters.
Yes.
And and he said to us, and it was great to feel that, because he said, I do have a lot of younger people that come our way that are looking for a free trip. And it was really refreshing to have you two come through our doorway with experience, and clearly you guys you're really trying to make a go of this. And I appreciate the fact that you've got this experience behind you. So that was probably a big one for us.
Yeah, and the prejudices was basically just in our head. So it didn't really exist. We just I think we just kind of were thinking that. And then we turned out we meet this guy and he's like, wow, you're our age.
Yeah. And maybe it's prejudice, but it's also the feeling, that imposter syndrome that, I remember trying to find a new job back in Toronto, and I had people telling me I had too much experience and I couldn't do this. And I wanted to try something new. And then some of those things kind of stick in your head, and now we're trying to build a new career for ourselves, and we're hearing these stories of, in our own heads, do we have enough experience to do this? Do we not? And that was just a great example of, we absolutely do. We absolutely do. It was one experience that we had that allowed us to believe again in ourselves. And now what we do is we just continue to ask. We ask people to work with various peoples, to various companies, because you know what? We have nothing to lose. And the power of asking has just paid off in spades for us, especially for our last several months in Colombia. We've worked with a number of companies here.
Yeah, and I think a big part of the first year we were traveling, we were too afraid to ask for help. But near the end of the year, we were getting a little frustrated. And then we got to Colombia back in November for the first time we were here. And yeah, we just decided to ask. And then things started opening up. And then, we came back in January just excited and just had so much momentum. And, it's been great.
Yeah, one of the mantras that I often say to myself is that the answer is always no until you ask.
It's a good one.
Well, part of the reason I ask that question is that as you are guiding and encouraging other people, you've got to deal with the demons yourself before you can encourage other people to get over them themselves. Mm-hmm. And imposter syndrome and some of those struggles, I think, are in most leaders. We just don't tend to see them because they, we don't get behind the facade, but I believe it's still there.
Right. Yeah, and I guess to your point, one of our goals of our website is to, inspire people to make changes in their lives. so they can be more aware of themselves and the world. And, our choice was to live location independent, to live and work and travel on our own. It doesn't have to be that way for everybody, and nor does everyone want to do that. So even small steps can make a massive difference in your life. From the way that the choices that you make, asking people to do business with them or to help you. I mean, those are things that we take for granted, but they can be so powerful.
Absolutely. Well, I found that intensive travel can be quite wearing on you if you don't establish some kind of consistent patterns that ground you. I recall that consistent exercise has been an integral part of your routine and your stamina. Can you describe your daily routine and some of the practices that keep you balanced and refreshed so you can be productive?
I mean, that was one of the biggest struggles we had, especially the first year, because our routine would have to change with each location. Like right now, for example, in Colombia, we have a great situation. We have a running track nearby. We can go exercise. We have an apartment, and, we can cook our own meals. And, things are great here. But the first year, we were moving around a lot. And our routine would change every couple of weeks.
I think we also we're struggling to handle it, deal with the changes. But now we have, 15 months in, we have much more of a lightness and just... we let things flow a little bit different. Like we just go with the flow more than we did, because we've had challenges as we went. We've had stayed in places where there's absolutely no room to work out, and it was just not ideal conditions. And you just get past that stuff. Like once you've had the experience, you can just kind of sail through situations that happen again. So in particular, you're asking about process. The big thing for us has been meditating. So we try to meditate every morning. And it's interesting because coming from the corporate world, I thought that was just such crap. I mean, I don't know who would find time to meditate. And, I just, something that was not even in my DNA in my past life. But it just really helps to just quiet the mind, think through not think about anything. And then the opportunity to think through challenges throughout the day just seems so much easier.
And after that, usually the first thing in the morning we get up, we meditate. Then for me, I have to caffeinate. So it's meditate, have a coffee, and then move. So it's either get outside and go for a run or work out. So, that's sort of my start.
And what we've learned working together, because we never used to work together the first time at all, this is the first time, is we have a routine that we have to respect for one another. So Troy, I cannot talk to this guy until he's meditated, had his coffee, gone for a workout, and then he'll get on with his day. I'm the one that'll jump into the task list immediately. I need this, this, and this done. What's going on today? What's on your list? And we were actually a little bit at odds initially trying to manage all that, but we figured out how to work with each other. Now, it's still a journey.
Yeah, that was year one. We got past that now. Now we're in year two.
Yeah, it's a process. Linda and I have been working together mostly on, some off, for about 35 years. And yes, it is always a process. I'm more like Doreen, that I get up in the morning and I do meditation and quiet time and journal and do some of those things. But my mind is just revving and ideas are flowing. Linda gets up and she just wants some quiet for a while. And it's all I can do to hold myself back at all, not to go, and this, and how about that? And some new ideas for, just be quiet, please. So I get it. It is a process. Are there any other lessons that you can share on a practical level as you navigate the ins and outs of making your work sustainable?
Yeah, we worked through a few tools that we've tried over the last 15 months, and some have worked and some haven't. I really like the use of Trello. So it's a software, it's an app, an online tool just for project management. It's just essentially it's a glorified list. I find it keeps me focused, so what's going on for the day versus the week and sort of some things we need to be thinking about. And Troy works on something differently.
Yeah, I kind of took a step way back in time and started putting pen to paper again. I went and bought an old school day timer and started writing stuff down again and using a calendar and a day planner where you're writing stuff down with with putting pen to paper. And honestly, it's made the huge difference in the last few months because I just started doing it in January. And because I'm such a tech junkie and software junkie, I always want to find sort of the next shiny object to kind of make everything so much easier. And I think all these great productivity software was actually hurting my productivity. And by just going back to basics and just writing stuff, pen to paper, and just making notes makes a huge difference for me.
That's funny. I've actually done the same thing. I've got a small calendar, a weekly, kind of a week at a glance, and now I do my daily list or even weekly list on Post-it notes so that I can put them in on the days, shift it, move it, and then when it's finished, I put a new one in, and it has helped my clarity. So low tech or no tech, but the clarity of my day and the things I need to do are so much more satisfying. So I get that. Very low tech. I'm assuming that there are people who view your life now as an extended vacation and that at some point you may eventually get tired of and just return to a normal. So what is your mindset around what is normal versus what's possible now? And are there any steps that you can recommend to someone who's just struggling with shifting what their normal is versus what really is possible to do? That's a tough one because it's strange because our life just feels so normal now. You know, knowing the fact that, you know, a couple weeks from now we're going to be on a bus going through the northern part of Colombia and then eventually down to Ecuador for our next home for the next 3 months. And that's our normal. I don't know. It's hard to explain that to someone who's not out there doing it. Right.
I guess probably my advice would be don't let anyone tell you that you don't have enough experience, because there's always opportunities that you can learn something new, try something new, see something differently. I mean, we just, in this beautiful world of online education, there's nothing stopping you from trying something new. And I guess your point on like, what's the new normal? I don't know. I guess the way that we're articulating it is on our website. We just try to talk about how we've changed in hopes that others can make changes in their own lives so they can be more aware of themselves. And we do it by travel because we believe like travel is the biggest accelerator for change. If we didn't have travel in our life, and I'm not talking about travel to escape, I'm talking about travel experiences that change you, where you can surrender yourself to an experience and you're awakened by it. And it's different for everybody. It could be volunteering. It could be spending time with a local family and understanding the way they live. It could be a whole host of things. We just try to demonstrate and show those things that we're seeing and doing in hopes to inspire others. And it isn't normal, but it's those little things that anybody can experience. No matter if you're still working full-time and you go away on a vacation, those moments, those meaningful experiences, they change you. They make you more open-minded about the world and yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, we had normal for 20 years, and I don't know if I even want any kind of normal, even if it is a new normal. I mean, we're loving right now. We love the fact that things change every few months. So I don't know if you want to call it the new normal or not, but I mean, we're loving this right now.
No doubt.
Yeah, and when you try new things, it opens up the opportunity to try something else and try something a little different. It's so interesting how that asking for something different in your life and then doing something different opens up just so many possibilities. And then you try more things.
Absolutely. Yeah, trying to get people to understand that the process of change gets easier the more you change and the more you grow. And there's a delight to be found in that. It can be tough when they're seeking the comfort rather than discomfort of growing. Along those lines, I'm going to assume that you get approached by people who are intrigued with what you've done, but they come up with a lot of reasons of why they can't.
Yeah.
What are some of the excuses that you hear most often for not being able to make changes, and how do you help people or encourage them with the mindsets that are behind them to change?
Well, the number one thing that we hear, and actually we hear it less than this, is I have kids. It's nice that you can do that not having kids. And I'll tell you, we have met so many families that have alternative lifestyles, whether you call it traveling full time, traveling part time, taking their kids out of school and homeschooling them, or having them experience new cultures. I mean, there's all kinds of ways a different lifestyle can look. And boy, are we ever inspired by those people. And they do it. They find a way to do it. And the stories that they share and how it's enriched their lives is just, it's so inspirational for us. So that's one. I mean, the other one that comes up is, I want to get to here in my career, or I want to get to there in my career, or that next promotion is coming up. Maybe I can't do that because, I have commitments. We had that. We had a lot of commitments. We had responsibilities. We were full of them. But I guess our desire to change was too powerful to ignore it. Those are probably the big ones. Of debt, of course, is another one. And we've found ways throughout the years and met many people we're traveling with that have figured out ways to reduce their expenses, to save differently, to budget differently, to reduce their debt. So those are typically the ones we hear.
Well, as you know, I had a conversation several months back with Heath and Alyssa Paget, who are in their early 20s, and they made a commitment not only to travel all across the U.S. working on a project, but also to pay off student debt. And it's been interesting to follow their journey along the way of not only doing what they desire and love, but keeping that focus on keeping expenses down and living in an RV so that they could pay off debt and not let that hold them back. It's amazing how debt can just tie people down and keep them from living.
Yeah, they are a powerful message in that regard, definitely.
Well, in light of the course that you're working on to encourage people, and you really offer a great ebook on your website for free, can you give, say, 3 critical things that someone right now can do to move towards that transformation? I
think the number one thing is find your community. Like, find that group of people that are gonna rally behind you and support you. I mean, that was the biggest change for us when we became part of the Live Your Legend community. That things just started to change. I can't even explain how, but if you just go back to that, when we made the decision, became part of that community, and made all these new friends, both locally in Toronto and globally online. I mean, you need that. I mean, not that you can't do it by yourself, but it just makes such a difference when you have a group behind you.
And it's people that support you, they encourage you. You see other people that are living different lives that you would aspire to be and to do. And sadly, these people are more important than your family. They're not going to judge you in the way that your family does. But absolutely, number one, without a doubt, it's finding your community. And I think the other thing for us, 2 other things. One was just this notion that life truly is short. It is such a cliche, but when you start to experience people in your life that aren't able to live their dreams, they're sick or they're dying. In our case, it was my cousin who was cancer, but just 4 weeks to the day we left, my dad died suddenly. And he was in an accident. And again, it just solidified. Life is so precious. And why you can't wait for opportunities to enjoy your life more, to have a more fulfilling life. And it's difficult to communicate that to people because you have to feel it. You have to really internally feel that, there is a finality to our lives, and until that experience, someone in your life has gone through that, you just can't. It's just hard to internalize.
I absolutely understand.
Yeah, and I think the third thing that you may be asking for is having those difficult conversations. First of all, with yourself, of what really you want to do. What do you want to do with your life? I would be testament to kind of coasting. I spent 20 years in a career, different companies, but it was always kind of like waiting for the next thing, oh, I'm not going to leave until I finish that last project. And it's having that conversation of what you really want to do and what you want to leave this world, and what, people want to know you for. What do you want to be known for? And after those conversations, you've got to have a conversation with the people in your life that can help you get there. I mean, certainly for us, if Troy and I never had the conversation about what we wanted to do in our lives, and it took a long time. Like we've always talked about, oh, we think we may do this or that, but we just took the time to have a serious conversation and got on the same page. Those would be the three things that we can think of that are probably the most important.
Well, speaking of Live Your Legend, you were both heavily influenced by Scott Dinsmore. And as you were talking, I just think about he was living his dreams, his goals of getting out into the world when he died while on a hiking trip. And I think, if I remember, that had a big impact on you as well and the community that he had started.
It did. In fact, we were really fortunate to get to know Scott and his wife, Chelsea. We, through the community as well as other means, Troy was doing some work with him. And they started on their journey of a year of travel just after we did.
Yeah, and I mean, we both left at the same time. We both started in January on opposite sides of the world. So we kind of kept in touch throughout the year, just kind of cheering each other on and giving each other advice. But yeah, I mean, that's such a huge loss. But I mean, the community he created, I mean, that's going to live on forever. And I mean, we're forever grateful for that whole group and Scott and everything he's created.
It's an amazing community. And we continue to be involved in it. And we were involved in it when we were in Toronto with the local group. And that's just a great example, again, of how people can truly make a difference in your life.
So speaking of being known for something and remembered for something, what do the two of you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, we want to make people more aware and conscious of the world and themselves. And we want to help people bring some awareness back into their lives. And it could look a number of different ways for people, whether it's patience or tolerance, awareness, courage. We really want to help people in that way.
Is there someone that you know who's outside of the spotlight, but doing something important that's having an impact in the world that the world should know about? Who would that be?
Yes, it would be our friends back in Toronto, Marla and Kasia Slavner. I'm not sure if you remember Kasia at the World Domination Summit. She got up on stage to present. She's a documentary. I think she was 17 at the time. Yeah, 17.
Okay.
She's doing a documentary. Her mom and her took her out of school last year, and they traveled through Southeast Asia and Africa, shooting a documentary on social justice and bringing awareness to stories around the world. And just everything they've gone through and the work that they put into this project is just incredible. And they've had so many struggles along the way, but they're just so resilient.
Yeah, I mean, it's a single mother who just wholeheartedly supports the causes that her daughter wants to make known in the world. And it's been difficult for them financially. She's had a non-existent father, but they continue to press on. And then, while, by the way, she's in high school full-time, she's an incredible photographer. She just did a photography book, and she's working on her documentary. And she's also the junior delegate of the United Nations, and she gets invited back. This is the fourth time this year she got invited back to talk about women's issues. And she's 17 years old. So if that can inspire anybody to get their voice out in the world, I don't know what does. And so their business is called the Global Sunrisers.
Boy, that kicks my butt.
Ours too.
We'll put her information in the show notes so that people can find her work and get inspired by it. Is there one thing you'd like to leave with our community that you believe could make a difference in their lives?
I mean, I can't stress it enough. It's the community. I mean, I know I said that 3 or 4 times, but that's the main thing for us. It's our community.
Finding new people in your life that can support and encourage you is everything. And I think one point that I'll make is just thinking about the corporate people in the world that might feel sometimes stifled to be creative and to make a change, to to have their own voice in the world, start their own business, or whatever the case may be. It dawned on me as we were, leaving that old world and moving to the new one, that you can make an income from multiple income sources. And it for the longest time, that was kind of that was maybe an excuse, is how am I going to make up having, the money that I was making before in the corporate world. But there are many ways that you can provide for yourself and your family. And it doesn't have to be one.
Yeah, that's a novel concept for a lot of folks, but it also brings the challenges of having to think on a lot of fronts and get out of one's comfort zone. Mm-hmm. That's tough for a lot of people. And
it started with us with that community again. There was our first meeting that we sat down with Live Your Legend, and we talked about what we wanted to do. And it was those people that just kept on encouraging us to make small change, small efforts, small things to do that. We also joined another group called Travel Massive, and it's a group of travel writers, travel bloggers, but also people in the travel industry. And that first meeting we went to, we felt like complete imposters. We didn't have a business or anything. We were just travel lovers coming there, and we've never felt so welcomed. That was a small step. That was going to one meeting to really figure out something for ourselves, whether it was for us or not. So we just encourage small steps. Small things can lead to so many big things. And like 15 months later, there are just so many little steps that have equated to so many large things for us.
Yeah, the magic of small things building up has been one of the adult secrets that I feel like took me a long time to just grasp. But you're right. Small steps lead to long journeys.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
If folks want to connect with you, what platforms or means are best for you and for them?
Well, you can find us on our website at travellifex.com. We're also very active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So Travel Life Experiences or Travel Life X?
Well, we'll have those in the show notes as well so that people can just click on a link and come find you.
Great.
Thank you so much for your wisdom and your time.
This was fun.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
We really, really enjoyed the conversations.
I want to thank Yodellist again for sponsoring this episode of The Creator's Journey. Yodellist is an interactive marketing platform for people in the creative world. I'm talking with Seth Hancock, a commercial photographer based in Los Angeles and a Yodellist client. Seth, you do a lot of work in LA and New York, but you grew up near Detroit. How did that shape you and the values you work from?
You've always heard about that Midwest work ethic. I come from a lineage of farmers and factory workers and people who just worked very, very hard for a living. And that's one of those things where I think the upbringing showed me how to be industrious, how to have some resolve, and how to never really just kind of give up on anything, especially a dream.
Midwest values seem to bring out resilience and resourcefulness as qualities as well.
Absolutely. Well, you're always looking for possibilities.
I believe you started out in advertising, then moved to the role of product manager for a large company before becoming a photographer. What lessons did you learn before starting your business that have impacted how you run your business and do your work?
Yeah, I kind of took a bit of a circuitous route. I started off I graduated from college with a business degree, went to work for the largest ad agency in the world, and from there was ultimately asked by a little company called Valvoline to be a brand manager for them. And so I spent a number of years working kind of on the client side, if you will, before walking away from that career in 2004 and, pursuing my dream of photography. And I think what I brought to the table was I had spent, 9 years after graduating from college in 95, I had spent 9 years working on the client side. And so I was able to come into really kind of any photo shoot that I do with that perspective of just kind of looking at the photo shoot through a creative brief, sitting down and asking, why are we doing this? Who is this for? What does the audience currently think? What would we like them to think? So on and so forth. And so I think having that mentality and that mindset, I think has benefited me because I just don't go into it and go, hey, wouldn't this be fun? Every time I do a shoot, there's always a reason why I'm doing it. I'm not just going out just shooting just to shoot. And I think having that plan tightens everything up from your pre-production to your production to working with assistants to your post-production, and more importantly, your interaction with the client. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters more than anything else.
Yeah, that's a huge value add. So what brought you to working with Yodelist for your branding efforts?
As photographers, we look at a lot of different solutions. And I started asking a lot of folks around LA, what's a solution that you're finding is working for you? And overwhelmingly, I heard from my photographer friends that Yodelist was, doing some great things for them. And I had met Heather Lafort from Yodelist a while back, so I thought I would just give her a call and just kind of have her pitch me, why should I switch now to Yodelist? And she really kind of reiterated everything that everyone in LA, as well as some people in New York, had been saying to me. And so I have been with Yodelist now for going on 2 years. I'm at the end of a 2-year cycle here. And I have seen just tremendous results with Yodelist. I mean, my last email promo that I did had a 26.5% open rate. And that's huge considering that the industry average is somewhere between 12 and 14%. And what that has allowed me to do, or what that's done for me, is that it continues to keep my name in front of people. And it continues to have me on the radar of the people who I'm specifically targeting through my lists at Yodelist. And so it's really been a positive experience for me so far.
So where do you want folks to connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me on my website. It's just simply SethHancock.com. You can find me on Instagram at @TheSethHancock, and the same on Twitter, @TheSethHancock.
If you want to find out how Yodelist helps creative people find one another for work, go to Yodelist.com.
Place to go to, you know.
Thanks for listening to The Creator's Journey. If you've enjoyed our theme music, the name of the song is You've Got a Home by Krista Wells. If you enjoyed the show and would like to see it fare well, I would appreciate having you go to iTunes and subscribe. While you're there, if you give us a favorable rating and review, it'll make a huge difference in helping a newcomer easily find it. If you want to email me with feedback or suggestions for a potential guest, or if you want to connect with any of the guests or find links to the people and resources that were mentioned in each episode, you can do all of that at thecreatorsjourney.com. We also have a growing community and a Facebook group called The Creator's Journey. Till soon, my friend.